Folks, we are here in the Ways and Means Committee Room. It is Friday, March 13th, 2:05. And we are working on our miscellaneous tax bill. While we have looked at all of the numbers in it in various delightful PowerPoint presentations, we have not yet seen the fiscal note. And so we're going to run through the fiscal note with people. And I don't imagine there are any surprises in this for anyone. So we've gone through all those numbers a few times, but it's good to go through the fiscal note all together.
Well, hello again.
That's two of you here. It's exciting.
It's a very lengthy fiscal note, so it's more than just one person. So good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. Chris Roop from the Joint Fiscal Office and
Pat Titterton, also from the Joint Fiscal Office.
we are here today to share with you the draft of the fiscal note for this bill. You will see that once the bill it's a little awkward because it's a committee bill that hasn't been introduced yet. So once it's introduced and has a bill number, we'll put the bill number in here and put a link to the text and put this online. But you're going to see the meat of what's in the note today. So the first line will keep you on the edge of your seats. It proposes numerous changes to the state's various tax laws. We've tried to sum up all of the fiscal impacts in one chart right here on the front. So you can see this without going into the weeds, which you can then do, and we can take you there later. But I'll just walk you through the row real quick, that, you'll see that the increase of the down payment assistance tax credits, you see any negative here represents foregone revenue or a cost to the respective funds. That's, 350,000 in FY 27 and 70,000 in FY 28. Section 54 had the 10-year tax study appropriation of $100,000. So the Joint Fiscal Office has the funding to do that work. Sections 55, 60, and 61, all in the aggregate speak to the provisions that both link and decouple to various federal tax provisions that Pat can then go in the weeds on. But these totals reflect the roll-up of the impact of all of those individual things cumulatively. So you'd see the $3.96 million hit to the general fund in FY 26, but then there's some positive revenue in the future years. And the R&D tax credit increase represents, since that has a later effective date, the impact of that begins at minus 1.74 million beginning in FY 28. The downtown and village center tax credit expansion by $1 million from 3 million a year to 4 million a year, represented by an additional $1 million cost in section 59. And then what was that, Tuesday, when we went through all of the changes with purchase and use and meals and rooms tax across the three major funds, you can see all of that reflected together. And when you take a look at everything and you add it all up cumulatively, you'll see that for the general fund, when you look at FY 26 and 27 combined, the net impact of the bill is, minus $610,000. The ed fund is very close to neutral from the purchase and use and meals and rooms switching, and ends up $900,000 ahead in FY 27, all based on the January consensus revenue forecast. And the T fund would then be ahead by $9.9 million as a result of getting that additional purchase and use in FY 27. And then that would creep up a little bit in future years as the growth in purchase and use tax hits. So that's the summary of all the fiscal impacts. This is a 10-page fiscal note. We're not going to go line by line unless you really want us to.
Thank you.
But in the interest of trying to be helpful to everybody, because we realize this language can be really technical and dense. In the past, we try to put a summary table together in here that just gives you the ability to see like what in one or two sentences is happening in each section. And then if we elaborate more, if it's something we thought was needing more context and would fit in the table, we'll put a little note here that says see description. The descriptions then follow this not very brief summary table. So the descriptions begin on page 6. And again, this doesn't speak to every 60+ number sections in the bill. These are really the things that we thought were most interesting and most in need of some additional context. So I don't think there'll be any surprises. We can run through these or take questions or whatever, but that first section, since it's one sentence, we just wanted to remind you all that that had to do with the credit for taxes paid in other state by S corps. Just because if you see that text in the bill, you're like, wait, what is this thing? And that just reminds you, we don't expect that's moving the needle on revenues. There's the property transfer tax closure of a potential loophole. Common level of appraisal tends to get people's interest. So we talked about that provision of the, having the CLA being 100% in the year of the reappraisal. That's helped deal with the odd things that can happen with the snapback and everything that Jake Feldman explained a few weeks ago. Health IT fund and healthcare claims tax sunset extensions. This seems to come up every year. And if this passes, we won't talk about it for another 4 years. Because it's a 5-year extension. The down payment assistance credit is here in section 17. And this credit operates a little differently than some of the other ones in that there's that first year allocation, but that amount carries forward in the same amount in future years. So we thought BHFA's graphic was really, really instructive at showing how these layers work. But the bottom line up front is that provision is an additional $350,000 increase above sort of current law in FY27. You'll see it ramps up a little bit and then ramps back down as the credits sort of age out. The Department of Fish and Wildlife rulemaking authority language is in sections 21 through 23. And just wanted to reiterate that while this language prohibits the agency from setting through rulemaking, setting a fee to access land, or requiring a license to access land. We just wanted to reiterate for the committee that that requirement has not been implemented yet. So like this isn't revenue we necessarily need to find anywhere. But we did put the estimates in that Fish and Wildlife provided in their budget testimony of what they thought the potential would generate. Sections 24 through 48 is a massive chunk of the bill that essentially changes deadlines from April to January. And that's all related to like all these sections of statute that deal with grand list, PDR, everything that goes along with it. And that has a delayed effective date until 2031. But it's a whole lot of language that when you go through, it's really just moving up deadlines 3 months. Sections 50 through 53 relate to PBR expenses related to towns. And that is the language amending the various statutes around the pilot special fund. This language does not make appropriations out of the pilot special fund. It just changes the verbiage in the green books around allowable uses. And flagged here that the language that is in this bill is consistent with the approach that was taken in the BAA that has already been signed into law, as well as in the governor's recommend for FY27. 10-year tax study. I don't think we need to talk about that anymore unless you want to. Sections 55, 60, and 61 all pertain to the federal link-up as well as decoupling. So you'll see the annual conforming language is in here that updates our link-up date, but there's also a lot of language that decouples us from provisions related to federal tax law. Pat has walked you through a lot of the specifics of that, and he can answer more specific questions that you may have. The section 58 deals with the expansion of Vermont's research and development tax credit from 27% of the federal credit to 75%. And this provision would take effect beginning in fiscal year 2028, not in 2027. Section 59 is that $1 million increase to the downtown and village center tax credit. And table 2 breaks all of the tax policy provisions out by section. So you can see, earlier you saw the aggregate totals for these, but this will show you every section, every line, and what the impact of the provisions were. So at the end of the day, the tax policy provisions, the stuff about the link up and the decoupling, as well as the tax credits, have a negative $3.96 million impact to the general fund, 14.25 million in FY27, 13.5 million excuse me, 13.45 million in FY 28. These ups help offset the downs that are in section 62 and 63 related to shifting around the meals and rooms and purchase and use tax, because you remember that as a result of all of that, the general fund at the end of the day would lose 4% of the meals and rooms tax. So that means the general fund would be losing $10.8 million of revenue beginning in FY 27. So I'm gonna make you all dizzy and go all the way back up to the top. And hopefully all of that still ties out in the first table, and you can see how the ups and the downs, when you add them all together, result in the cumulative impacts of the three major funds that are shown at the bottom of the table. Does anybody have any questions? Because I covered a lot in not a lot of time.
It's impressive. I think that you two have covered it very well over the last many months. Thank you both.
Oh, yeah, no, this is amazing. Thank you so much. But does this go from us to appropriations?
Yes.
Any questions for Chris and Pat?
The only thing in this whole thing that I don't really understand is section 17.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay, sorry.
No, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm talking all the time, but section 17, I don't understand what we're doing there and why it's called down payment, because 350,000 for a down payment.
Yeah.
No, that's a great question. So I'm going to quickly exhaust my knowledge on this topic, but the way this works is there's a certain amount of tax credit allocations that are granted to the HFA every year. The HFA will then sell those tax credits to like banks or insurance companies and then use the proceeds to fund their down payment assistance program. So yeah, you're not giving $350,000 to like one person's down payment. It's an amount of tax credit that they're allowed to sell, and then they use the proceeds to pay for that program. And my understanding, not knowing all the weeds of how the program works, is it essentially works as like a revolving loan program for the recipient. So like once you receive that assistance, if you refinance your mortgage or sell the house, that proceeds then goes back.
It's
But
usually around about $10,000 that gets then paid back.
But-
And Maura Collins is who presented, did like a very deep presentation on it, if you remember that.
And she put this excellent graphic together that we thought was so good, we couldn't replicate it in a way that was better. So we just gave them the credit for it at the top. But it really shows how, we talk about the first year allocations, but they really do have a tail on them. So, we're coming off of a previous round of credits that were issued in prior years. So you're not necessarily starting from like a zero position, like we had an expense in the past, but those are those blue cells. But the program would be continuing for future years at a slightly higher rate every year.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you both very much.
Yes.
Anyone have any questions for Kirby?
No, it's the stuff, few sixes. Yeah, oh, yeah, sure. You want to make a motion? Okay.
Okay, Madam Chair, I move that we favorable 26-0727, enacting the miscellaneous administrative policy changes to the tax laws.
Thank you.
I would second that.
Representative Canfield moves that we find our miscellaneous tax bill with a very nice number on it. Favorable, and Representative Kimball seconds. Any committee discussion?
Yeah, I'm not. Not comforted with the way we handle federal tax credit for scholarship granting organizations, sections 18 and 19. Yeah, I plan to vote yes for the bill. The overall.
And briefly, again, your concern, I remember that we discussed yesterday, but I haven't done it at the tip of my brain power.
Okay, federal tax credits for scholarship granting organizations.
Right, understood. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not comforted that the way we handled that in this bill, but I'm still ready to vote for the rest of the bill.
Representative Quigley, do you want to share something?
Sure. So this is on section 21 and 23. You may remember, we put in the limits on the Department of Fish and Wildlife, setting fees. Michael O'Grady came in, talked about the rule process that we just passed, and it might have been my misunderstanding, but I certainly felt uncomfortable that I'd missed something in rule process. And so I read through the rules because I was assuming what Ledge Counsel Michael O'Grady had said was that those new fees for users fees for some facilities, the $5 a day or $20 for the year, were in that rule. And so I read the rule again. I reached out to Michael and he said it wasn't in there. And that he was just assuming that the way it was written at the end, that they could possibly do it. But again, I just want to make people aware that it wasn't in the rules to go forward with that. It wasn't mentioned, it wasn't talked about. And anyway, that's basically all I want to say.
I really appreciate you looking into it because I was also confused by the idea that you and Representative Odie would have missed that in rulemaking. And so I was really glad to hear that you didn't miss that because I actually take a lot of comfort in the fact that 2 of our members are on LCAR. And appreciate you clarifying that. And
Well, not to say that I won't miss something at some point because I wouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
But again, when I feel comfortable that I don't remember any testimony, and again, even Michael and I said you would hope that if they did proceed with that, with an amended rule or whatever, it would have to go through public hearings.
Yeah.
And there was nothing in there, no public comment. So anyway, thank you.
And what I saw Michael said to you in response is that they still can do this under the law unless this passes, but on the roll. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else?
I would just go along. Senator Canfield on his concerns about the SROs as well.
Thank you. Okay, really appreciate all the work of staff on this bill and how much everyone has dug into all of these different sections. It's a lot to track a bill across like the entire first half of the session and keep on stepping away from it and coming back to it. And I really appreciate how much everyone sort of oriented and reoriented to it. And we're, curious about this really like fairly difficult moment that we found ourselves in. So thank you. If the clerk could please call the roll.
Representative Brannigan?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Is Representative Burkhardt? Representative Higley?
Yes.
Representative Polka?
Yes.
Representative Kimball?
Yes.
Representative Maslin?
Yes.
Representative Odie?
Yes.
Representative Page?
Yes.
Representative Wazazak?
Yeah.
Representative Canfield?
Yes.
Representative Kornheiser?
Yes.
We have voted the bill favorable, 11-0-0.
Thank you very much, everyone. Representative Kimball's going to report the bill. It needs to get a bill number still because it's a committee bills and then go to appropriations. So it'll be a little bit. Huzzah. Okay. We are going to talk about alcoholic beverages now, which seems appropriate for a final bill on Friday. Oh, no, we're not. Tucker's not here. Let's start with Ted. I'm just doing I'm doing a reverse, we're doing reverse order on all our smaller bills. Ted.
Joint Fiscal Office Uno. My report is short. I did not even enter the Zoom. I will note that this bill has an estimated minimal fiscal impact. It removes a sunset that would have occurred for special venue serving permits for retail establishments. They removed the sunset, so retail establishments will be able to continue to have their special venue serving permits. The permit cost is $20. The idea for this permit is that it's really for bookstores, art galleries, museums, if they're going to, at an open or something, going to serve beer and wine. That's what the permits are intended to do. At $20, unless they became the largest program at DLL licensing program, they're not gonna have, it's maintaining a minimal amount of revenue that goes to the enterprise. That's all I have. That is the only fiscal impact in the bill.
Thanks so much.
Yes.
Anyone have any questions? Okay, thanks. We're gonna take a brief recess. We have to hear the bill first.
And is it just, I can't